He started the recording.
You started
Okay.
recording? I see the recording button. Yes.
Okay. So should I start now?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So Bhaktos, I'm starting. Okay. So hope that everybody is so far well, and we have to be careful as we are discussing. Now I'll be talking about quantum droplets and supersolidity in quantum gases. You will see that these two are very closely related. One of them is two-component BC, the other is dipolar BC. So supersolidity has been seen in experiments in dipolar BC. The other is a two-component BC, but they are very closely related. So I'm talking about quantum gases, nanokelvin temperature. So okay, so now since we have a diverse audience, so let me start in a very elementary way, and it also was educational for me. For example, I thought that superconductivity, superfluidity came around the same time, but it appears that Kamerlingh once saw it in 1911, and superfluidity came much later, 1938. Two groups independently. Of course, Kapitsa got the Nobel Prize, and this Meissner is the famous Meissner effect. Then after this liquid helium, where it was observed, is a strongly coupled system. So it took quite a while. Even now, also there are lots of open questions. So then, in 1957, there's a very small paper, physical review paper by E.P. Gross, the same Gross of Gross-Pitaevsky equation. So who talks about supersolidity? He started with NLSE, nonlinear Schrodinger equation, or Schrodinger equation with the interaction, and points out that it can have a Bose-Einstein condensation, and also it can have a supersolidity. Very small readable paper. So then, okay. So as you know, for example, after this liquid helium at the lambda point, when they found liquid helium, there were this Tissa's two-component theory. Then Landau finally got it right. These two fluids model, namely the superfluid and the normal component. So below the critical temperature, later on it was understood much more clearly that there is a broken U1 symmetry. This global invariance is broken, and there are Goldstone modes. All those concepts came much later, but this zero viscosity came because of the superfluid component, and the thermal excitations is the normal component. So then later on, I know after it was 1956, Penrose and Onsager looked at it carefully, keeping in mind supersolidity, which I was referring to, E.P. Gross paper. So they pointed out that if you keep the constraint of one particle per site, then this kind of long-range order super solid will not arise. So this actually created this no-go theorem, stopped many people from looking at it very carefully. So, so this remained for quite a while until later on it was shown that this strong constraint of one particle per site, if you remove, which actually is true, you will see there's a diffused component where this thing is there, then you can overcome this problem. So Penrose and Onsager. Now, okay, so this is Gross paper 1957, and you can see here standard Schrodinger equation, and it was very beautiful analysis, very short paper. So the interaction is here, using the Fourier transform of the interaction, assuming very standard property about the interaction. He was able to give that there is a possibility of supersolid phase. Okay, so now in the same year, 1956, 57. Okay, where is that? Lee, Wang, and Yang. Yang was at that time the address in Princeton. Wang also, Carson Wang, the famous statistical mechanics book, he was also in Princeton. Lee was in Columbia by that time. So they wrote this nice paper that they found out that is there any beyond mean field interaction which arises. They looked at this bosons with delta function kind of repulsion. When they come in contact, they hit back each other, which is our standard 5/4 theory. Psi star psi when this is a constant. Now, for example, nowadays this Bose-Einstein condensate, that's what we assume. We assume the interaction is delta function. So it becomes a cubic nonlinearity, the so-called nonlinear Schrodinger equation, which very accurately captures the Bose-Einstein condensate. So the so-called Lee, Huang, Yang beyond mean field correction is the one which is relevant here. Okay, and that was done in 1957. And that was the time when a lot of work was done. After their work, this Luttinger and many of the other people looked at these models. A lot of novel concepts came around that time, 60s, golden era. Now, so Lipschitz.
Prashant, just a question.
Sure.
So what is super in the super solid? What is this word super? And what does it represent? Is it standard solid, or we should ascribe some more properties to it?
I'll show you the experimental realization. Since you asked it, what it is that you have a superfluid. Okay. Now, when you go to the super solid phase, you have this local density peaks, which is little diffused. Okay, it's not a delta function. But in between, there is a superfluid phase. So the superfluid establishes the coherence between these intensity peaks. And that is what they saw in experiment. And that's what I'm exactly going to show you. Okay. So that is a superfluid in between the density peaks. And density peaks are not delta function. Delta function would have prevented because of this Penrose-Onsager theorem. Okay. And you will see the experiment. I'll show you the exact experimental picture where you'll see that there is a non-trivial background. And once that background goes, it becomes a regular solid. That also they see incoherent droplets, which is our regular solid. Okay, but of course there are these off diagonal, long range order, those things are there. But I'll show you the experimental what they see. All right. Okay, then came this Lipschitz and his co-workers, 69, and of course there was one paper I missed out. Giednitz also did some very nice piece of work. So they looked at from the point of view of defects, and they pointed out that these defects can also condense. So from that point of view, there is a very nice book of this Lipschitz. I had 2 copies. One copy, one of my students, Michiles, took it away. So they actually, the Russians, developed this theory of defect, and they pointed out the possibility of supersolid there. Okay. Now this, I was referring to this problem of Penrose and Onsager. So that was a beautiful paper by Chester in 70, who pointed out that this condition of delta function kind of constraint, one particle per site, if you remove, then this is not a problem. So basically it means that the density peaks are not sharp, they are diffuse. So, and that's what in fact they saw experimentally. I'll show you now. Okay, then during that time, I think in 70s, this was Leggett, or Goddard Leggett. He pointed out that this rotational inertia, there will be a sudden change from the classical value. And around 2004, this famous paper of Kim et al., they saw a sudden decrease in the drop in the rotational inertia. I remember, many of us started reading it because before that, I myself was not very clear about this thing. Only used to hear people talking about in liquid helium, but people took it seriously when they saw the sudden drop in 0.1 Kelvin, the rotational inertia. But in 2011, these same people wrote a nice review article. So this I have not cited here. They pointed out that it is not conclusive. So this moment of inertia showing is not conclusive yet. Okay. Because of which people started looking at particularly cold atoms. And main reason is that liquid helium is strongly interacting. Okay, so now, this what is this? You'll see this Li Huang Yang beyond mean field correction plays a very crucial role in all these one-dimensional systems. So what is it? So as they pointed out, these 3 authors pointed out that standard mean field correction, which we take like 5/4 kind of theory, psi star psi whole square. It could be repulsive, it could be attractive. Typically, in case of nonlinear Schrodinger equation, when BC occurs, it is repulsive. They call it scattering length, which is repulsive, positive. So this beyond mean field correction is something little obviously expected to be lower. It has been concluded from various analyses that it is there. Now you can see if this together, if it is small, it's not going to change very much. The whole thing is going to remain a gas phase. But if beyond mean field correction is this one, going positive, and this other thing is going down, for example, negative. So there will be a range where this energy can become negative. So beyond mean field correction, it competes with this mean field correction that could result in interesting physics, and that is what they have seen.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, before you start going deep into this mean field and all that, I mean, super solidity is a phenomenon, right? So it doesn't care about whether you are describing in mean field or otherwise. So can you first tell clearly, in little more clearer terms, what you mean by super solid? I mean, Sorin asked this question, and before you started showing the graph, so my understanding had been that it is a phase of matter which shows both diagonal and off diagonal order.
Yes.
Right. I mean, this is
yes.
So
yeah.
So now from I mean, so when you showed some graphs, I mean, I have to start looking into it from some kind of a underlying concept. So if you try to explain that from that perspective rather than me.
Yeah. Okay. Let me put it this way. See, I mean, I sort of in context of superfluidity, I understand the off diagonal long range order. But let me be honest, in context of super solidity, I still have to understand it clearly. But what they have seen experimentally is that in the super solid phase, these intensity peaks have coherence. They are correlated with each other. Okay? So this localized intensity peaks. So there is a phase transition from the normal Bose-Einstein condensate to a phase where there is a density modulation. So these peaks are correlated. And the correlation is established because there is a superfluid component between them. That is what they have seen.
So which peaks? So okay, I understand you are talking about the density correlation, and there is.
That's right.
So there are peaks, structure factor peaks.
That's right. Density peaks, physical density peaks. You will see in both the systems, erbium and dysprosium, they have seen physical density peaks modeled through imaging technique. You will see that. I will show you that plot. And in between also, there is a superfluid component.
In between means what?
Density peaks. These density peaks, there is a, they saw, for example, 4 or 5, some limited number of density peaks. There was a phase where in between this density, physical density, atom density, there is a superfluid phase. They established that it is superfluid. Then when change this, scattering length, yeah.
I'm not understanding the language, perhaps. So please help me to understand. So there are density.
Maybe you can go to the right. When he will show the experiment at some point, maybe you can compare.
I'll show the experiment. But but let me just again reiterate, maybe because otherwise he has a very relevant question. That physical density, atom density, it is not a data function. There are peaks, like for example, sine, or you can imagine something like a peak of a sine function or something kind of thing. So there are, or a Gaussian, a small Gaussian peak. So these Gaussians are not separated. Between those things, there is a superfluid component.
Prashant,
so
right?
Again,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask, if I try to understand it in terms of solid state physics, because you're talking super solids, is it something like you see in a Bragg scattering? Like if you
Bragg scattering, see, Bragg scattering would show here a diffusive component. It is not a delta function. So like you see, in case of, so that diffusive component is there. But beyond that, see, in a case of a normal solid, you don't have, these two atoms, they can vibrate independently. Okay.
Right.
So you will see they have shown through precisely that mode. So that vibration is phonon mode. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So here they show that there is a phonon mode of the super solid. Okay. So that means this translational symmetry is broken in case of super solid. Okay. So this phonon mode for in case of normal thing is independent of each other. But here you will see when they will vibrate coherently. So that coherence comes because in between those density, physical atom density peaks, there is a superfluid component. And they clearly show that it is superfluid.
Okay.
Amit, am I okay? I can show you those peaks a little later. Huh?
Okay, go ahead. But I'm still not very clear, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah. See, I am also getting clear.
Prashant, just one more interruption.
Yeah.
So you mean the normal modes of the problem? If I consider a perfect solid, if I look at the normal modes, they will be independent of each other and probably phase incoherent. What you are saying is this normal mode will now coherently interfere with each other. Is it because of the background liquid?
Exactly. So there will be a Goldstone mode coming, because of this U1 breaking symmetry. There would be a Goldstone mode from the translational breaking of symmetry. So that will be different from the phonon mode which we have seen. Our phonon modes are incoherent, but there is coherence here.
I think that's a precise enough answer. I think, yes. Okay.
So main point is that, so there are two different kind of interactions. One we are all familiar from Bose-Einstein condensate, and the other one is the so-called Bion mean field correction, which came because of this. Now, if you really go to this, dipolar gases, you will find out that this type of dynamical equations naturally arise when you look at very carefully. For example, you see this dipolar gas, the erbium and dysprosium, both of them. So in this phase, you will find out that there is an attractive force which is pointing here. There is a repulsive force because of this dipolar interaction. Together, they will conspire so that there will be net attractive force. So repulsion and attraction. So that is what we require. And when that happens, this type of phase transition occurs. Okay. So now these two systems are erbium and dysprosium where they have seen it. So just a historical note that there is a very nice paper by this one of these persons who is a key player here. He points out that this Li Huang Yang thing is neither due to Li, neither due to Huang or due to Yang. This kind of corrections was earlier known in case of electrostatics of capacitors. The bulk energy is like our mean field energy. Boundary energy is like this Li Huang Yang correction. So very interesting that Helmholtz or somebody else in 1930 or something had calculated it. I'm trying to collect those references. Now, one more thing also I'd like to point out that this, unlike BC, where we start with some kind of interaction, then we go to pancake type of situation or a quasi 1D situation by tuning in the Gaussian trap. Here, the nature of this Li Huang Yang correction and mean field is very different in 3 dimension, 2 dimension, and 1 dimension. 3 and 2 are similar. 1 dimension is completely different. So that derivation is a bit tricky. So, okay, so let me now proceed. Okay. So let me not get into mathematics. All I want to show that dilute low dimensional liquids, 2 component Bose-Einstein condensate, you can actually sort of arrange in such a way that you will be able to realize this this kind of condition. And it was first, there was a window where people found that another kind of matter can arise, which is that quantum droplet. So that was first pointed out by Petrov, 2015. This people have seen experimentally. These two are very closely related, but in principle, they are independent phenomena, but arising from the same system due to this Bion mean field correction and repulsive interaction. So this Petrov's paper established something called quantum droplet. Quantum droplet is just one Gaussian kind of thing. It's a localized object. There is no coherence, just one object. That is a quantity, it's like a bound state of atoms. Okay, so, and you to be more precise, if you see the exact, yeah.
So you are talking about quantum droplets. So from the experimental point of view, what's the typical size of this kind of droplets? Because when you attach with it is condensed the molecules or the atoms.
Right.
So how many atoms or the molecules we will consider as a kind of droplets?
See, for example, in past was in this ferrofluid. In ferrofluid, it was micrometer size, and I think some large number of atoms. But in case of cold atoms, I think 5 to 6,000 atoms. And okay, but in ferrofluid, it was quite a big object. It was micrometer size. Okay.
And the typical temperature is
nanokelvin. Yeah. So this paper, this Petrov's paper, and Petrov and Astrasik 2016, they actually gave explicit solution. You can see from here, there is explicit solution. And amazing thing is, this is what the kind of thing they have seen experimentally. They're very simple profile, but if you plot it, it looks very much different than a Gaussian. There's a flat drop. There's a very flat top droplet. And this happens in 1 dimension. As I told you, 1 dimension, 2 and 3 are completely different. So the same kind of physical systems, is one small window, which they analyzed, they found quantum droplet. If you look at a bigger window and another parameter domain, people found super solid, both of which have been experimentally seen. Okay, so now, okay, so what is how do they observe? Like Dhananjay was asking. So what they observe is this kind of, see, for example, normally if there is repulsion, the atoms, if you start with a trap, release it, they will expand. But if these two fellows balance each other, then eventually you'll find that, and remember, there is no trap. Here, it is self-bound. The whole thing will not spread. That is what they saw. First paper was in 2016, where they found an indication. Very concrete verification came around 1819. So both here in this case, they found signature for this beyond mean field correction. They found that through this expansion kind of thing, releasing from the trap and imaging. And the spread was not like ordinary kind of thing. So they established the presence of beyond mean field correction. And then later on, in the free floating condition, around 1819, there were 3 papers where they really saw this. Okay, now let me come to super solid. Amit was asking. See, this is the dysprosium 162 and erbium also. There's a dipole-dipole interaction. So dipole-dipole interaction essentially, arranges is a long range, interaction. Then you have a short range repulsion. Together they conspire. So short range contact interaction and this long range dipole-dipole interaction. So what is experimentally seen? This is an experimental paper. Is that the scattering length around 100 unit of the scattering length, you see normal BC. Then you see around 94, they observe these density peaks. They are physical density peaks with superfluid matter in between, superfluid matter. So now, then around 90, they found only these incoherent droplets. So how do they know that it's superfluid? As Sorin observed, you'll find out from this Borstar-Moore dynamics, they clearly established that there is a superfluid component. So this is the phase. BEC, U1 symmetry broken. Now BC with super solid, which is basically, so it's actually super solid is density peaks with a superfluid matter in between. So translational symmetry, yeah.
What exactly how do they control this scattering length?
Oh, that they took phase-back resonance. Phase-back resonance.
Right?
Phase-back resonance by magnetic field.
Sure.
By magnetic field. And I think dysprosium allows even through optical manipulation, but in these papers, they were doing through magnetic field. Okay.
So what exactly is the picture? I mean, I see this blob.
Density,
so what is that?
Density atoms. This is in the, atoms in the trap, quasi one-dimensional trap, quasi one-dimensional real atoms, which has been imaged after releasing it.
So if it is density, then what is the pink blob in the middle panel?
Higher density, because this is at the boundary. So,
so if it is density, it is higher density somewhere and lower density somewhere. But you are saying superfluid in between. So I want to understand what is in between.
In between, you see this small reddish color. That is a superfluid matter.
So in this picture, what is the x-axis? Is it the distance?
This is the distance, yeah. Trap distance. This is the trap, physical trap.
Prashant,
yeah.
This is Jeremy. We have just one related question. Is that this phase-back resonance is a signature of BEC, right?
No. Through phase-back resonance, they can control the scattering length. Okay. The condensation comes, if you see, remember that from a Gaussian distribution, suddenly the distribution goes to...
Right. So so can you just tell, I remember, it's been a long time, so I'd forgotten. You had told me earlier. So can you just remind me of this? Like what exactly it does, the phase-back resonance?
See, phase-back resonance, you have a magnetic field, right?
Yeah.
So suppose, if you calculate with the presence of magnetic field, and there's a degeneracy, that will break, right? So let us say 12 plus 1 states, one of them will go down. Now, you can actually manipulate where the levels are. Now, if there are two atoms, have colliding with each other, if their levels match, then they are the scattering, this resonance of the second kind, scattering cross-section becomes infinity.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can use that, resonance scattering by tuning in these levels. Only when they match, there will be resonance scattering.
Right. So now in this second case, the 94 case, you have phase-back resonance coupled with that density correlation, right?
The phase-back resonance is just allowing me to control my AS. AS is like your hard sphere, radius. Okay. It is like a hard bulk scattering. So A is like that, for me is parameter, that scattering length.
Okay.
So 4 pi, that is the cross section. So that manipulation is done through phase-back resonance.
Yeah. It's like changing the range of interaction, roughly speaking, I guess.
Yes.
And
so now
you can
one of the things is
So the
Yeah.
transition is also, it's also translational symmetry which is broken, right? You know, in each question, like the translational symmetry is broken, and you have peaks which are appearing at different places, physical peaks, matter, peaks of matter.
Yeah, it is matter.
Peaks of matter.
Exactly. It is matter.
Prashant, yeah, Siddharth here.
Siddharth, 1 second. I actually started asking in between, you interjected. So now the question is, as an experimentalist, I'm trying to understand. So in the second, that 94A thing again. So what? So we have this area which is a super fluid, within which there are these more solid droplets, right?
Exactly.
And there is, and they are ordered.
They are ordered. Exactly.
So now, when I do a superfluid, like test of superfluid, like this is indeed a superfluid. So basically, how do I test? Like I float.
I'll show you that experiment. I'll show you. I have kept those things. That's quite, quite interesting. This is how they really saw it experimentally. You will see.
Yeah,
so Prashant,
can go ahead.
Hamid, yeah.
So just one question. I mean, this has been debated for ages in the business of super solid. That are you talking about a true super solid, or is it a phase separated object where you have certain places solid and certain places superfluid? These two are very different things.
Yeah.
So is it clear looking at this data? I mean, I didn't see this data before. That is that debate there, or is it resolved debate?
There are experiments in nature, science, PRL, public writing. I do not. I find the community is more or less agreeing that this is super solid. I didn't see any dissenting voice because they are all papers in nature, science, PRL, and PRX.
Well, that's a weird argument, though. But
it is not my argument. It is not my argument. It is not my argument.
No,
if you know somebody who has contradicted this, I would be happy to know.
But the periodicity of the matter is like
That's okay.
but the periodicity of the matter is like a solid, no? I mean that part
Exactly. That's what they say. Yeah.
Can I say something, Prashant?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
So, basically, actually, I also tend to somewhat agree with the Amit. So, this is a bit controversial even today. So, people are pushing very much this thing. There is a expectation was building up from long time, from 2005, because of the different reason, this long-range nature of interaction, and there is a hotel-like interaction, even more all these things, hotel-Mac-Maxon structure. But it was very difficult, even numerically, nobody even simulation, it was not found out any sort of super solid-like structure. This is only this recently when this droplet-like phenomenon has been found out. Then this is like an it looks like an uncorrelated droplet, more like liquid crystal phases, like uncorrelated droplets, and then they are ordered like a crystal structure. So superfluid pretty much existing inside the droplets, but outside I'm not very clear. So whether this can be called as a super solid, or these are like the people are pushing this thing very much. Of course, there's a group of Fernando Faglione and also Gilman Fowle. Even yesterday I found there is a review article where they are pushing this thing like a super solid.
But I think that probably I would love to see that article. But the articles which I saw, which I'm quoting here, they're all experimental articles, and these are physical. From there if there is something, your collaborators are all involved there, so you must be having more information. I would love to see, because as far as I am an outsider, I only see the experiment, and the experiment they look like they are communicating, they are doing.
Basically, the two groups. So Francesca Fernandez's group and this Gilman Fowle. So they are pushing
Right. Anyway, so we can discuss about it. I would like to get your opinion about that. Okay. Yeah. So coming back, am I audible? Suddenly all the sound stopped.
Yeah, it's nice actually. Yeah, sound has stopped. Yeah.
So now, so basically more pictorially, you can see that's what this is taken from their papers. More pictorially, you can see there is BC in a trap kind of thing. So you can see this is a distribution. And this is the one which they refer, this background is the one which they refer as super solid. Density peak, the more red is because this height is bigger. and these two are the ones. The experimental saw these three, and there were some side two peaks also. When that is absent, they claim that it is incoherent. Coherence here is because it's the same color, incoherent, different color. That is what is taken from their papers. So now,
Prashant, right?
Yeah.
One question, simple question.
Sure,
Can you
sure.
go back to the earlier?
Yeah.
So just I'm asking, how
Sure.
does, so I still not clear, maybe a stupid question. How does one actually change the scattering length? I mean, how?
Oh, okay.
How do you actually?
See, that was actually
What is mean by scattering length here, and what do you do here?
physically scattering length is a geometrical picture where hard balls are hitting each other, and when they come and touch each other, there's a repulsion. So that is parameterized. It's a phenomenological parameter, parameterized by this AS, this scattering length. Roughly pi AS square is the area where the atoms offer to each other for scattering. Okay, hard ball scattering, right? Typical classical concept. So AS is that length. Now, as you know, for example, when there's a resonance, see, for example, in this and I can give you an example from particle physics: proton and pion and delta. When their energies match, if there's a resonance called delta, then scattering cross section becomes huge. So here, similar kind of idea. If these two energy levels will match when the atoms are scattering, the scattering cross section can be enlarged. Now, how do you, for fixed atoms, how do you do that? So you sort of, imagine that there are these levels, like angular momentum levels. By changing magnetic field, the splitting is being changed. So these resonances, when their energy will match, there will be huge enhancement in scattering. So this was actually established, that is how this BC was, before BC came, they used it as a technique, and this was well established, before BC came. So this, according to them, is a very tested technology.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
No, you can, in fact, Subhasis and others will enlighten you more, Amit Vagara, about this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah.
So, so now, see, this again taken from this Italian group, 2019. So they show that, more clearly, there are 2-3 groups, as Subhasis pointed out, how then this Italian group, and I think 2 groups in Italy, they have seen it. You can see clearly that this, you can see from this way, Bose-Einstein condensate, background density, and no density. That's what they refer to. And then, in fact, for erbium and dysprosium, this is the phase diagram. This side is BC, and this as a function of scattering length. And you see, in this case, there are more number of atoms. Dhananjay asked me about number of atoms. Now here, in case of dysprosium, number of atoms are much more. So number of atoms are located here. N is equal to this in terms of 10 to the power 4. 10 to the power 4. So here it is much more, and here it is less. The supersolid phase is in between, and it is indicated by this line that there is in fact density. Okay. So now this is incoherent phase where number of atoms are less. So this is for Dhananjay. But here, in case of this object, number of atoms could be more. So number of atoms will differ from different state to state. So here unity 10 to the 4. So so phase diagram of these two are here.
Prashant,
Right.
I had a quick question. The phase coherence and the density modulations are both coexisting.
Right.
So even if I don't get into this debate that Shubhashish raised about the fact that it could be phase separation as against this thing, even if I trust in the fact that it's so are we thinking about the supersolid phase as some kind of a coherent superposition of density modulations and phase coherence? I mean, the phase coherence of the superfluid? Is that how we should picture it?
I think something like that, because you see, imagine, see, when they do this vibration, I'll show you the picture next. In this case, you will find the vibration is coherent. You will find that this there is an antisymmetric mode. The middle flow will remain constant. These two will vibrate oppositely. In fact, numerically they showed that is actually a nice signature where this antisymmetric mode, which was supposedly higher energy, it comes down. Particularly in Faust, some of the review articles he writes very nicely. So here they show that 0 is here, so this flow doesn't vibrate. These two will vibrate oppositely. Okay, that very very nice video also there. Whereas in this case, vibration is completely independent. So this spontaneous density modulation is what, and there's a phase coherence. These are the words they use.
Yeah, because I'm reminded of something called the pair density wave phase. That is also being discussed in the superconductivity literature. And I'm just wondering, is this something of that kind where we have different kinds of pair density waves in the system?
So
Is
Siddharth,
that-
I think we can maybe continue this after the talk if it's okay.
But I
It's
see,
not directly.
Yeah, sure.
I think debate is not settled yet. I think many more opinions will come. You know, this
Sure.
phase separation, these many things will come because this is just
Sure.
the beginning.
Yeah,
So if
okay.
it's okay, the questions which are not directly related to the talk can be probably discussed at the end.
Sure.
Yeah, please go.
So, you know, see, for example, people were asking
Prashant,
about...
sorry, Prashant, I'll interrupt you once.
Okay. Yeah.
So what about 0-point oscillation? You know, you are almost at zero temperature.
Yes,
At least we know that if we try to form a quantum solid in one dimension, what destroys the quantum solid is the 0-point oscillation. Because if you look at the 0-point oscillation amplitude, it will be of the order of your lattice spacing. And that melts the solid. So it's fundamental in some sense. So are you saying that they see this 0-point oscillation? Is that what you're saying?
See, this is at T is equal to...
Just a question. I don't know.
This is a thermodynamic limit, right? So these are just three atoms, essentially.
No, this is T is equal to 0. They say that it is T is equal to 0. The normal component is very small. Now...
Which means 0-point oscillation should be dominant.
Yeah, but there are only essentially three densities, right? In the sense it's not a thermodynamic system.
So, but you can ask Subhasis. Subhasis has a very beautiful paper on this, you know, density fluctuations. But what, you know, since you asked that, you see, this is what I'm telling you. Here, they find this Higgs mode, Boostrom mode. This is what they use. The Higgs mode is amplitude modulation. You see, that is the Higgs mode, and the energy of that mode exactly matches with that 2 delta mode. And you know, this is this coherent oscillation. This is the Boostrom mode. Okay. So both the Higgs mode and the 2 Boostrom modes, one due to U1 symmetry breaking, one due to translational. And in case of you know, superfluid, super solid, this motion is coherent. You can see here, everybody is moving coherently. This is delta phi, and this is the amplitude mode. So this is also a Nature paper, 2019. 2020 now, there is a nice review article, which, okay. So I think now I will go to a bit safer place. So the debate is not settled. There are, you know, these are very 3 or 4 experimental papers. And, you know, I am pretty sure many of the questions you asked, particularly the 0-point fluctuation, many things will be now asked. Is it truly phase separation? That is also probably something. And in fact, I am now reading Subhas's paper, you know, this. So there are good work coming out from our group. Subhas's collaborators are involved. So I think we can discuss meaningfully more about this thing. So I'm just a beginner. So now I'm going to something which I'm a bit more confident. You know, this super solid behavior in one-dimensional trapped Bose-Einstein condensate. Okay. So this is something which has not been seen. This work was done here. So why I am more confident? Because I found exact analytical answer. Okay. So now, and the equation is basically for quantum droplet. This was the equation which we are familiar. This is our nonlinear Schrodinger equation, repulsive cubic interaction or psi star psi whole square kind of interaction. This is the beyond mean field correction. Now, this was derived from a two component Bose-Einstein condensate in suitable limit. Okay, so that's the reason you can see that if you go back to the literature, you will find out they will have G and delta G, we will have relation with G11, G122. So it's a 2-component BC in which in a certain parameter domain, you can get this equation. This exactly mimics this beyond mean field correction and one-dimensional system, what Wang and Lee found. Therefore, Petro's paper points out that one should be able to see quantum droplet here. And that's what they exactly saw experimentally. So now what I will show you that here there's a possibility of this kind of supersolid phase. For that matter, I will consider a moving supersolid. In principle, you can keep V, but K and V will be related. So right now we don't have to bother about V. So it's a block waveform. So I take exponential ikx, K is the momentum, and the psi 0 is a periodic function. And the zeta, the period, will come through the coupling. So it's a spontaneously broken kind of system where both the U1 symmetry here and translational symmetry will break. Okay. So now, before we break, these nonlinear systems, as all of us are involved in a nonlinear equations in one way or other, the varieties kind of instability occur. You know, for example, magnetohydrodynamics, in any system we talk about. Here, people talk about modulational instability. What happens is that in this case of one dimension, a plane wave solution is no longer stable. A standard plane wave solution is stable for certain range of, you know, interaction strength, and chemical potential. When that doesn't happen, there is a possibility of formation of solitons or other kind of objectized soliton trains. So first of all, before you get into this kind of periodic modulation, one should check in which parameter domain they occur. And this is a very standard thing. For example, in case of optical fibers, people find out that to generate these soliton trains and now fashionably the so-called rogue waves, you have to come to the proper parameter domain and you do this kind of analysis. So this zeta is the essentially it parameterizes the separates the domain where this kind of things will occur. Imaginary part of the frequency is what is plotted. So now, you can see here it's basically symmetric, and as a function of momentum and coupling, you can identify the domain where these kind of things will occur. So it's again a routine kind of thing. Once you establish that indeed in this system there is a parameter domain, this instability occur, then you go and check for these periodic solutions. So some of you may be familiar, some of you may be not. This Sn function is actually a solution of nonlinear equations called elliptic functions. They appear routinely in nonlinear Schrodinger equation. That's what we are going to show you, and it is well known. And here I can only point out this parameter called m, which is a modulus parameter. M goes to 0, this becomes sine. M goes to 1, this becomes tan hyperbolic. So these functions which arose in the context of k plus orbit, these elliptic integrals, they took on its own, and these elliptic functions, Sn, Cn, Dn, and their mathematics have become very popular and have found diverse use, starting from nonlinear dynamics to Schrodinger equation to string theory, whatnot. So these functions, our students may not be familiar, but there are very nice, good articles which they can probably use it, if they know about this function. So now there is another function called Cn. When m goes to 0, that becomes cosine. M is equal to 1, that becomes sec hyperbolic. So amazingly, these are the functions which interpolate between sine, cosine, and tan and sec. So hyperbolic and conoidal and sinusoidal functions. Okay, so now we take these answers without loss of generality. I'm taking a real answer. And here A is the background superfluid density which I was mentioning about, and these are the density modulations. So when you solve, you indeed find that there is a non-zero value of A, and that and this B is how they're related. The zeta also you can find. This length scale comes because of the coupling. G here depends on the modulus parameter, both the couplings. And one thing is that if this beyond mean field correction is not there, you will find out A will not be there. So beyond mean field correction is essential for the existence of this. Without this kind of solutions are seen in BEC or soliton trains. 2017, there is a science paper from Hewlett's group. There are many papers. You can actually control them and generate them in a routine manner. It's this presence of A which makes the difference, which we claim makes it a super solid. Now, and that happens only.
Sorry, just one question. Once you have a V in the game, you should have a critical velocity at which superfluidity breaks down, right? In general.
That is true.
So, but that is not incorporated, is it? Or it has to be by hand incorporated?
No, it has to be by hand. Here, actually, we are looking at the chemical potential. Okay. So, so that is the reason we have not. But that is, you are right. I mean, at some point it will break down. Okay. But here,
then you will start having phase slips, right?
Yes, indeed.
Once you cross that criticality, you'll start having phase slips, which will destroy the proliferation of basically phase slips.
Yeah. That is absolutely.
Anyway, okay, fine.
I have one question. So in the background A, you are talking about having the 1/3 value of the uniform background.
That's right.
This 1/3 is the experimentally observed quantity, or it is a kind of hand
calculation from that. All that I'm telling you is a very simple thing. All that I'm telling you is that you go back to this equation. Okay. Assume that a constant solution exists. That means you demand this is equal to 0. You find a solution for that. Okay. There will be one solution where psi is equal to 0. Okay. That is the normal case. There is another solution, whatever that value. When you put a Sn solution, you find this is 1/3 of that. Okay. So this indicates that B going to 0 is not analytic. It doesn't smoothly go to the constant background. So there is a non-analyticity, and that is arising because this is a fast order phase transition. Okay, and in Petrov's thing also he points out in case of quantum droplets that it is a fast order phase transition. So this happens because of that.
Okay,
So
thank you.
they have not seen this solution. They have seen these hyperbolic solutions which I mentioned earlier. So some solution of this equation have been experimentally verified, not this one.
Okay.
Okay, so as I pointed out that this kind of density peaks arise because of that Sn function, and A provides the background. So, and for different kind of couplings, we have shown that the amplitudes could be different. Okay, so as a function of modulus parameter, you can see there's a change also. Modulus parameter can go from 0 to 1. So the density peaks becomes higher, the separation becomes bigger, the width also becomes bigger, just for the sake of completeness. Okay, so a bit more rigorous calculation that you do, when you compute energy per particle as a function of momentum, you do find that there is a negative domain. Okay, so Petrov, for example, pointed out that chemical potential mu can become negative from certain domain to certain domain, and our solution exactly matched with Petrov's. Petrov's thing was a hat kind of thing, very flat kind of hat. Ours, you can imagine, if sort of modulated hat kind of thing, but having exactly same chemical potential. Okay. So is there this paper is there in the archive now? Currently, it is with the referee reports have come. Interestingly, referee reports came the day before yesterday. One guy is positive, the other guy is probably Petrov or his collaborator. They have raised some questions. So possibly some of them we are able to answer. Let us see. But at least one referee is positive. So let us see. Okay, so I will now go to okay. So this one I thought would be more interesting to our colleagues here because this nonlinear system, in fact, was shown in case of experimentally, this dye-filled kind of system at room temperature, and this non-linearity in that experiment and in many experiments done much later was shown arises because of thermal effect, and it's a room temperature phenomena where superfluid has been seen experimentally. So we are proposing that by suitably looking at the system and by changing pumping, you'll be able to see it. Okay, so the equation without this is what people have seen experimentally. If you see that paper, quite a few papers, I'll give you all those references. They describe it using standard nonlinear Schrodinger equation, where the photon's chemical potential comes because a cutoff frequency is there. You can imagine the Helmholtz equation, there's a cutoff kz that provides the chemical potential. This arises primarily because of thermal effect, and the dye is rhodopsin dye. So they pump it. They first showed in a paper in Nature or Science, I am forgetting, that there is in fact thermal equilibrium. Later on, that was confirmed by many experimentalists that there is indeed thermal equilibrium. White they call it white box, not black box. And then the second paper they showed that the light which is coming out of it is coherent, and it is at room temperature. So the pumping, they did it very carefully just to balance it. What we are claiming is that if you do a little bit of change in pumping, then this system will show a supersolid behavior, and that should be at room temperature. Okay, so again, as I told you, first of all, you have to check it out that is there a parameter domain where this kind of instability is there, because you are now talking about source. So indeed, you establish that indeed certain domain, this kind of instability would be there, and that is a function of wave number, cardinality, and also the source strength. So once we establish that, these are standard equations. So we have to, for example, just for a variation, we took a slightly different kind of thing. You see, these kind of solutions are typical for nonlinear equations where you will have a fractional transform, something like a plus b as some function divided by c plus d. This is Pardee type. As Anand
Prashant, sorry, so, but when you started, I think you don't need quantum mechanics for this. This is classical, right?
You don't need quantum mechanics. You don't need quantum mechanics for
this. So this is really classical wave equation, which is giving rise to similar physics.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
In fact, they start with Maxwell equation, then they take it to Helmholtz equation, get the chemical potential from there. It was quite remarkable. I could not believe, but the light is coherent. And now, for example, Phillips, this guy of BEC fame, he has now a number of papers showing that indeed there is thermalization, and it is actually that coherence light is actually BEC. Okay.
Just one question which is a bit confusing. If you do not have a sense of particles, what is the sense you will attach to a chemical potential? I mean, it is analogous in the sense that the term looks similar to what we will have if we had particles, or
Yeah,
it has more meaning here, and then you need photons, right? Finally, you have to go back to numbers in an average sense.
Yeah.
So
here,
is there a connection, or
I think here, here it is Maxwell equation, just Maxwell equation, and that that cutoff frequency appears as chemical potential. If you see this Clare's paper, okay, it is actually a standard Maxwell equation. But when we are talking about photons, there are a couple of nice experiments. This guy Lukin from MIT, who sort of goes to the quantum domain. He talks about attractive photons and repulsive photons. So this is like a mean field equation, a quantum equation. So he does talk about quantum effect, quantum photons, attractive, repulsive. But these people talk about standard Maxwell equation, as far as I could see.
so one has to understand the meaning of what mu is inside in this context?
You can go back to Maxwell equation. If I have not given, I give you the reference. Standard Maxwell equation. So indeed you can find as a function of the source, because when you have source, it is non-equilibrium. In fact, steady state. So here you need steady state for that, because normal BC will not allow a background which is constant background. Only you need steady state solution for that. So indeed you find that analytically you can show that there is a steady state solution. So what is the chemical potential, all those things you can derive. Good thing is that this is a solution where you can actually do by hand. You can actually exactly compute those things. And amazing thing is, you do see. For example, I was surprised, the same kind of equation with a hyperbolic solution. If you put Cn as hyperbolic, this was actually, there was a science paper, Kippenberg, this is that frequency come. He cites that paper from Hyderabad, which I looked 20 years back. They indeed see that thing in the frequency come. So it's quite amazing that, this kind of solutions people are able to see in quasi 1D now, because the things have become so sensitive. So a main point is that, so in fact, we got motivated from that paper, that Kippenberg paper. It's exactly NLSC, but it was frequency comp, which is different physics. Okay. So now you also quote unquote photon crystallization. Incoherent is the one when there is nothing in between. If there is
so the Prashant, sorry to interrupt. Again, you have a Galilean transformation, though you're using an equation which probably is invariant about in Lorentz invariance, right? So where is the connection? So I mean, I would imagine that this is Lorentz invariant physics. So are you breaking that invariance? Are you breaking that invariance?
Okay, give me some time. I will see. It is that when you go from Maxwell equation to paraxial approximation to nonlinear Schrodinger equation, right? So that
okay, you're in the ultra relativistic limit.
No, not ultra relativistic. What do you call it? You go from Maxwell equation to nonlinear Schrodinger equation. Two derivative, you replace by one derivative, where h bar is with that 2 pi lambda.
Yeah, which means you linearize.
You linearize, and you are looking at motion along one direction, paraxial approximation.
So that's somewhat, some people call it ultra relativistic. In a sense, you linearize the dispersion. Right. I'm just wondering that where is this V? What is the meaning of V when you have a kind of Lorentz invariance, or you were breaking it? Or
so your Lorentz invariance is not
curious.
Your Lorentz invariance is not there, because when you took that approximation linearization, then you have broken it, and you are assuming direction along motion along one direction only. So that symmetry is no longer there.
I see.
This is the physics from which you get this optical fiber. That nonlinear Schrodinger equation. The same kind of system.
Sure.
Okay. So now, So this paper again,
so in the previous this topic, you was discussing about the experiment, which is actually is a kind of dye you are talking. So is it some kind of crystal dye, or is
this is rhodopsin? This is rhodopsin. This bacterial rhodopsin.
Okay, so it is it is made in a solution.
Yeah. So this dye field, in their resonator, it is that solutions. Yes, it is, and they find out that one of those levels is macroscopically occupied.
So how they decouple those things then? So with the solution,
I can give you all the references.
Okay. I'm very interested.
Okay. And these are the kind of things. For example, Bipul and Doptos, they have in fact shown. I remember Deepak Ambasta's paper where this K nonlinearity played a role. That thing. So quite possible because room temperature. You see this Nobel laureate Phillips. He's not excited. He's doing these things because the room temperature physics. Okay. So I think you people would be able to tell me more about where from this non-linearity comes. So good. So now some solutions, the good thing is that I could do it by hand. This COVID period, sitting here, one could do it by hand. That is the main thing. So, okay. So now this is something which I found interesting that, again, so far we have shown it in cubic quintic. All these people point out that the key to super solid is the appearance of the so-called Roton mode. There is a Roton instability beyond which, this kind of super solid appears, that wavelength. So now, just to see, can we have an analytic way of looking at these things? Actually, indeed, it is possible because, you are looking for, you could give analytic solution so far for this cubic quintic equation. It also appears, but the equation which they consider for super solid is not this. They consider Seiberg Q psi. That was for super solid. But I have so far that for that I don't have an analytic answer. I have partial answer in terms of numerics plus some analytics. But for this one, which is also seen in some BEC kind of system, and with a negative sign, namely loss, three-body loss, we could establish an exact solution. So we separated into sigma and theta because we are looking at vortex kind of thing. This is Roton mode. So this separation makes sense when we did that. And to keep in mind that the vortex with a constant background, the answered solution was taken like this. The zeta is like x minus vt. So 1 over zeta kind of square kind of thing. And this is sigma. So rho goes like roughly like 1 by zeta or 1 by x. So indeed you find exact solution. You can express energy in terms of momentum. And there is a background subtraction we have done. So in principle, you can have a constant background also. Now, lo and behold, this is exactly what these people, Somaj et al., pointed out, that this is that nature paper, the Roton instability they established through experiment. So after that, in case of dipolar BC, this is the domain where your supersolid appears. And here you see exactly the same thing. Fortunately, this model we could show it analytically. Yeah.
Prashant, sorry,
Yes,
sir, I'm totally lost now. So if you need rotons, you at least need 2 dimensions.
See,
right? But your initial experiment was a 1D problem.
It is quasi 1D.
So I think in 1D you will only get phase
No, it
shifts.
is quasi 1D.
You will not get rotons. You will get phase
it is quasi 1D. I will not call it roton. You are right. I will not call it roton. But what would you call this object which goes like power law?
That's I'm curious. I mean, it's
not.
yeah,
It's not. I agree. It's not roton.
Because vortex kind of singularity you will not
I
get,
agree.
right, unless you are in 2 dimensions.
That I
Only
agree.
you will get phase shifts.
That's I agree.
Subhasis, you are not audible.
So what I am saying, in one dimension, one can have such deep-like structure.
I see.
But see, for example, they have seen the so-called gray soliton, which has a complex phase, that goes to vortex. There is oscillation between this quasi 1D, the object which has a complex phase, and this vortex kind of thing. So these are basically quasi 1D. I would say this power law, and there is a phase structure. I would not call it vortex. It is not a vortex. But the dispersion, look at the dispersion. Dispersion, they have also done a quasi 1D system. Dispersion exactly mimics this. So there is a place where it becomes 0. So in that sense, I quote unquote, I call it, and I quote their paper because this is what they have shown. And it matches here with an exact answer. Theirs is not exact, numerical. But strictly, you are right, it is 2D. Okay. So now, so you can actually play around by changing. I will stop here. And so there is a room for, open for more questions. And I know our DPS have many members who are experts on this. And I hope this would have more collaboration discussions about this novel phase. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant.
Thanks, Prashant. Very nice.
Okay, na? Done, right?
They will ask questions.
Yeah, questions and comments. Yeah.
Okay, Prashant bhai, I just want to ask, I mean, why do you call it? I was still not getting it. what do you call it, super solid? What is the physics? I mean, there's some sort of a density fluctuation in, if you have a super density fluctuation inside the what do you say, that's a super the liquid, but how do you mean by the physics of the super solid?
See, I hear the answer I gave is more of a phenomenological answer. Okay, so see, I would say that, for example, in case of solid also, translational symmetry is broken. Okay, you have phonons because of that. Only thing is that each of those fellows, your atoms will vibrate independently.
Okay.
So here, that coherence is the one which probably differentiates this from the other. My phenomenological answer was that there's a superfluid in between. But I will get back to you. What you are asking, I'm thinking more deeply about it. Maybe because this quantum, something like this intensity correlation, something could throw deeper light on it. So at this moment, I can only give this phenomenological answer that what they are showing, that there is a coherence in that vibration, and so that the middle fellow remains stuck, the other two fellows vibrate, whereas in the incoherent fellow, all of them vibrate independently.
So it is only because of, as you said, is only because of the dipolar interaction between them, or what is the interaction?
Here it is dipolar interaction, but the dipole provides this long range interaction, that is short range repulsion. Okay. And the dipoles now are arranged along the one direction, so that as if like spin in case of Hall effect is frozen. So they, except providing this long range, they get themselves arranged, and they don't play much bigger role. But actually,
the solid is more like a molecule, you would say, in the sense that it's not whatever, a few thousand atoms which are vibrating, but you just get 2 or 3 density peaks.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
So it's more like a molecule.
Okay. No, I have that is true. So when there are a lot of matter comes there and it behaves like one big single atom, that is true. But then there it looks like, just because they're separated, it looks like there is a repulsive interaction between them. How is this repulsion coming? Because they're well separated.
See, that repulsion is contact, that contact interaction, that that psi star psi whole square kind of thing.
No, not between the actual particles, between the superfluid blobs, the one which is making the solid. So just because they're separated out, then it's effectively as if there is a local short range interaction which is creating this peak, and there is a repulsive interaction once this bulbs or whatever the big things which are formed, which is making the solid. So among them, there looks like there is a repulsive interaction. Where does this repulsive interaction between this is coming from? Okay. See, Pradeep, you are giving me idea. So I know, for example, when they derive interaction between the solitons, typically solitons repel and soliton, anti-soliton, kink, anti-kink attract. Okay. So I would like to do the same kind because I have analytic answer. Okay. So there is a very nice paper of Avinash Khare, and this Abhat Saxena in 2019 PRL, where they actually use some very nice mathematical result to show this long range attraction repulsion between solitons. It's in PRL paper 2019. Now you have given the idea. I will go back and look at the interaction between these objects using that. Then only one will to tell. Because you see, the soliton attraction repulsion is not because of any fun. No.
Similar kind of thing would be happening here, but I cannot say.
There is some effective repulsion between peaks.
That's right.
Because they are well separated.
But there's a characteristic length scale which probably comes out, right? Because of the instability, which is of a microscopic size, right?
Yes.
So is there a characteristic? That's what I think PK means, right?
Yeah, it comes here. See, there is one scale that zeta, which is that healing length. There is one scale coming up because of modulation instability, and the Roton mode gives rise to another scale. So the super solid comes beyond the Roton mode.
So that's like a micro.
Physically, it's like a fluid, and physically holding some bunch here and some bunch there, and holding it stable is something very strange. Like generally will not. Unless there is coherence, unless there is repulsion.
Correct. Yeah. By the way, here I am telling about modulation instability. In the ferrofluid, this is Rosen-Zweig instability. Some of you are more familiar with that Rosen-Zweig instability. And there are very nice pictures of that Rosen-Zweig instability after which this happens.
Prasanth, from the physical point of view, so if we consider, let's say, fluidity, super conductivity, those we can understand how it is. But in terms of understanding how we can say which one is the super solid or what is not super solid, how we can distinguish those things?
See, I mean, I would say, I know it's a very nice question, very nice question. I would like to, probably this, like Amit was asking, this off-diagonal long-range order, probably some deeper kind of thing one has to understand. Actually, at this moment, for example, phonon is also a Goldstone mode. What's the difference between that?
No, my problem is the how we can feel that this is the, let's say, it is a super solid and how which one is not.
May I say something here?
Sure. Yeah.
Just like a normal solid forms out of liquid, so it is an essential thing that the super solid will form out of super liquid.
Yes.
So unless the super liquidity is tested, we cannot say it is a super solid. So maybe that's a good way to test.
Yeah, that is one point. But there again, there will be two phases. One is incoherent droplet kind of thing. One would be this coherent droplets where somebody is establishing a coherence between them. As Pradeep observed, that is the key thing, and that thing probably needs a bit more careful understanding.
So when it is incoherent, they are still equidistant from each other approximately? No.
So then, they saw only 5 or 7 of them. They saw in the experiment.
Yeah. So this is melting. This is like a melting of this solid.
Exactly. That's what the language they use, because apparently it's a faster phase sensor.
So, okay. So if there are there any other questions, comments? So